Okay. And I'm going to share my screen. So let me do the do PowerPoint live. I was telling Lisa, who's one of our presenters, it's a pretty casual meeting, but it's not usually this casual. I'm usually not trying to blow things up 30 minutes before the meeting.
I was like, oh, you're getting all fancy with PowerPoint Live.
Yeah, Um, and my graphics, let's see, my graphics didn't show up. Let's see if, there we go. All right. Okay, started the recording. We're good. Deep breath, sip of coffee. The other thing is y'all can't see me drinking coffee when my avatar's on the screen, and I'm going to be drinking coffee during the whole meeting. Uh, Welcome, everybody, to the April meeting of the Texas Teams community. As you may recall, if you attended our February meeting, this is the fourth year of our Texas Teams community, and I'm super proud to have been able to be a lead in this meeting for the last 3+ years. And I always want to thank Mark Leavenworth and the DIR for their partnership in this meeting. So, Mark, thank you so much.
As always, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing I messed up was my slide master. And so you will see. So the theme for this year, we do a theme every year, is the Texas Team Superheroes. And I used Dolly, which is part of the Open AI, artificial intelligence and image creation suite to create these cool superhero images of leaping over tall stacks of manual paperwork and cutting red tape and lifting buildings over their head. So because y'all each and every day are superheroes, and you go to bat for the citizens of Texas and for each other. And this team is a big part of that, is helping the state of Texas be effective by using modern technologies. So kudos and hats off to all of our Texas Team superheroes. So like I said, I messed up some of my slides today. If you just joined, I'm running a little low on sleep. I have a sick child at home, and I've got shingles, so it's a little bit of a mess today. But we're going to make it through. And so we have a wonderful guest back with us, which is Chris Bunton. He's there on the screen, and I've had the pleasure of working with Chris Bunton since he was with DADS, the Department of Aging and Disability Services, many moons ago. And he is now at the Texas Workforce Commission, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about the prohibited apps. So if you haven't heard of that, should consider yourself lucky. And but he's going to tell us what that is and how TWC has been responding. And really always appreciate Chris being willing to share insights from TWC. You may recall that he came and shared with us back in December about the amazing work they've been doing rolling out Teams Phone to their remote employees. And Chris, what are you guys up to? About 1,500, 1,600, 1,400?
We're north of that. We're approximately at least we're over 2,000. We had to slow down due to the prohibited apps because part of our BYOD solution was using the Teams phones on our personal devices, which is a nice segue into my presentation. And I'll talk about that.
Okay, awesome. I'll hold you off for 1 second there. I also want to show really quickly. I'm going to just kind of borrow from some of my introduction time, even though I'm already over. And I want to show y'all something. Actually, I'll save it until after Lisa, which is our document that is created by several of my team members around GCC capabilities that are either coming to or have been released in Microsoft 365. And so it is a really great reference site that you can go to, and it's kept up to date every 2 weeks on what's coming, what's released, and how to use it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, we have just a super awesome member of our worldwide training team, Lisa Johnson, who is going to be talking to us a little about some of the sites and sources of training that you may not have ever heard about or seen. She showed me 2 sites today that I had never seen, and they're absolutely incredible. So look forward to having Lisa share some of that with us. And then I'll do the um, the document that I was talking about the capabilities, and then we'll have a little bit of open discussion time. And so, without further ado, what I'm going to do is go ahead and hand it over. Oh, I'm sorry. And one other thing. So, it's a bad idea always to mess with a meeting 30 minutes beforehand, especially when there's 500 plus people on the invite. In an effort to clean up the invite list, because several people had asked me, "Hey, would you please remove me from the meeting? I've moved to a different department," or some people somehow they still are getting their emails even though they're retired. They're like, "I retired," but they still somehow get email from me, the media request. And so, in an effort to clean up, because with so many people in the invite, it's hard to find a someone to take out of the list. So I completely refreshed from our Texas Teams community interest list. Now, what I didn't realize is not everybody's on there, and so a lot of people got a meeting cancellation. And so not only did I mess up the shortened URL, but I also mess up on the meeting cancellation going out to a bunch of people. So if you are interested in joining this community meeting on a regular basis, then please go to, you can scan this with your phone, this QR code, or you can go to this shortened URL, and I will drop that in the chat. And what that does is takes you to a Microsoft form you can fill out to say you want to be added. And so if you got a meeting cancellation and you just happen to find yourself to this meeting, then do me a favor and go to that and just fill your name out and what agency you work with and what your email address is. And if you want to be removed, you can also have yourself removed. And I'm going to really try to keep that list much more groomed, and the invite list much more precise on who should be invited and who has requested not to be included anymore. Okay, so with that, I am going to stop sharing this slide, and instead I'm going to share a deck that Chris Bunton with CWC was nice enough to send over to me for us to go through together. And when I do this, I'm going to have to share full screen. And so, Chris, if you don't mind, or actually Mark or someone else, if you don't mind, if someone raises a hand or has a question in the chat, if you don't mind bringing that to our attention, that would be great.
Sure.
Will do. I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, Chris, are y'all able to see the prohibited apps slide?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
So yeah.
excellent. I'll forward to.
All right. So as Michael said, been here a few times and enjoy these sessions. We've internally been having our tech talk coffee breaks for I guess 4.5, 5 years now. So great minds think alike, and we collaborate and share a lot of the neat stuff internally. And where we can, we come here. This is something I think that might be helpful for a lot of the state agencies. At the end of December, Governor Abbott had issued a decree to block TikTok. Right after the start of the legislature, there was concern that in addition to TikTok, there's additional apps that warranted some attention. So next slide. Which brings me to February. In February, Governor Abbott issued announced that all state agencies, while conducting business, were not to have this said apps list. It's about a dozen of them in proximity, or to use these apps while doing state business. Okay, so I know I've talked to some of you and some of your leadership and some of your technical SMEs, because we were all kind of scrambling at that time how to be compliant and what can we do to lessen the impact, as well as how can we sustain this, right? The administrative burden. So next slide. So here are some of the objectives of the plan, right? As I say, it prohibit any state issued device from conducting business while having these applications on the device. At the root of this is the concern that these devices have the ability to use your mic and even your camera to listen in or spy. And I know, you're probably saying, okay, well, aren't devices doing this now? You're right, to a certain extent. There is a demarcation point. These apps take it a step further. In addition, a lot of these apps are rooted in countries where we don't have some of the best relationships for. For example, TikTok is rooted headquarters in China. Also, one of the apps on the list, Kaspersky, that's out of Russia. Okay, so just following the order, we prohibited technologies. We wanted to minimize our threat landscape. So the first thing we did, next slide. Yeah, so basically this slide is just saying, hey, the only exceptions can be done by the CEO, and even that has to be turned in to DIR. So next slide. So our approach, we wanted to minimize our attack surface. So the first thing we did is suspended our BYOD, right? So because we can control our devices better, right? You know, TW issued laptops and TWC issued cell phones. So that made this task a lot easier, as opposed to if someone was using their personal computer to conduct business and they might or might not have, one of these prohibited apps on their personal device. Okay, so we shrunk that attack surface right away. So that made it easier, and we focused on the state issued devices and okay, how to secure that, right? So administrative policy came out from HR in February. Do not use any state issued device while having these apps on the device. We control that, so they're not going to have them because we control it and they can't install. But we also specified in the vicinity. So, for example, a lot of you, just like TWC, we have hybrid work and we might be working from home, and someone in your family might have a personal laptop. You might have some of these apps are generational. Some of my kids might be here visiting, and they might have TikTok and bring their personal laptop or phone. So they should not be in the vicinity. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. Okay, but also these sensitive areas, right? If you're doing business in these sensitive areas, for example, IRS handles IRS FTI top data. So if this is in the case, if we're on site, right, not remote, but in our physical meeting rooms, these devices we're not allowing, right? And we have signage that we put up, and we're in the process of putting up on the meeting rooms. We'll be trying to make it easier and less of a intrusion, right? So if you have visitors coming, how do we handle that? So we'll have the sign, please keep your devices in your vehicle, or some areas will trying to get lockers, trying to make it easier and less of a intrusion for when people are coming in to do business, right? Because one of the things we're keeping in mind, we don't want to have service disruption, right? So if someone's coming to receive some employment services, whether with the business or with the job seeking, we don't want to impede that, okay? But at the same time, we want to be compliant. Next slide. So we had a lot of questions when this started, quite a few, and not just from the business areas within IT, so we felt just having a communication strategy, some of the things we did, just getting the word out, and that making sure we're on the same page. So keeping in mind, we're not trying to disrupt service delivery or any business. At the same time, we're trying to be compliant. We had several informational meetings with leadership, HR, privacy office, right? Cybersecurity. We developed that FAQ, some of which I'll show you in another slide. We had a IT hands-on meeting because we're at the face and we wanted to be able to tell our customers what we were doing. We had a agency-wide Government delivery message communication that went out to all TWC. And we have a SharePoint site that is a living site that's always been updated. Okay. Next slide. Some of the FAQs, and I'll share some of these with you. I get calls after hours, kind of use my personal phone. So we're issued, all TWC who in these situations, we're issuing TWC phones. That takes that away right away. That negates it. Does wearable devices count as personal devices? Yes. Your wearable devices, anything that has an IP. So not to get too technical, right? You got these devices, very sophisticated, heart rate, they can tell. So they're listening. So yes, short answer is yes. What about using your device, your personal device, if you're using multi-factor authentication? In this case, yeah, it's allowed, right? That's no listening there. That's just a simple technical handshake. When I use Facebook and get a TikTok message from Facebook Reels, is this acceptable? So the answer is yes, but you might want to check with your HR department and see if you're allowed to use Facebook at work. I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but the answer is yes. So these are some of the questions, and the list is like 2 pages, and honestly, most of these came from IT. We had questions that were very technical. I have a VPN that does this type of encryption, and if I have a personal device, and we have did a special formatted drive, and it was just way too technical. And we just said no because we couldn't even keep up. But yeah, we could share these with you, and I'm sure you probably done similar scenarios with your teams. As of March, I know all of the 28 agencies, or at least those represented on the ITLC, they hadn't had a technical 100% solution. And I know we're all working towards some control. And we're making a lot of strides, and I'll share some of those with you in a second here. But before I go on, and I'm almost done, any questions, rather?
And I'm not able to see the hands. So if you do have a question, just go ahead and come off mute and ask your question, or drop it in the chat. And Mark Leavenworth, if you don't mind looking at the chat,
Yeah,
sure would appreciate your help.
No questions from the chat.
Okay.
Awesome. And also Justin Roan, who is the account technical strategist for the state of Texas. Many of you know Justin. He's going to come on toward the end of this call. He had another call in the earlier parts, and he's going to be available also to answer some questions. But Chris was available at the beginning of the meeting, so we're going to kind of break that up. But Justin will be here for part of the open discussion.
I do have a question that just came in, Chris. John Palermo of HHSC asked for TWC protection against forbidden applications. Are services like Cisco Meraki Air Marshal being applied? And this
So-
is,
We're
it
not
says,
using, you're talking about Cisco Meraki.
oh, yeah, Meraki.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no. So we have a layered approach. That's a great question. Uh, we, I have a talking point on that where before you go out and buy anything, I would encourage you to use some of what's offered in your Microsoft licensing already. But Merrick, so we have Umbrella that we're rolling out that has pieces of that, but it's a Cisco product, and we're in the process of rolling out to address it. To answer your question, from HHSC, we're also using iTunes, some of the capabilities of that touches on some of this with our end-use endpoint devices. We're
Hey,
also
Chris, are
using
you talking about Microsoft Intune or like I wasn't sure. It may just made me. I heard iTunes, like not the Apple iTunes, but you're talking about Microsoft Intune, right, for mobile device management.
Intune, yeah,
Yeah,
Intune
yeah, yeah.
mobile
Okay,
device
that's
management. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
cool. That's what you're talking about. Just making sure.
No, thank you, thank you. Next slide. Yeah, so yeah, we're there, and I don't have much here to pull out, but if I could, because see, if we were all in the office, I mean, securing these devices and it would be a lot easier. And you heard me say this. Well, the TWC folks have heard me say this lots of times. Uh, Good thing about hybrid, you have a lot of positive. Bad thing about it, it's increased your edge, right? Your infrastructure, and it makes it more difficult to secure. So some of the measures we're putting in place, I mean, you could argue those are to prevent hacking because, I mean, but I think by in the next three months, and I think the other agencies will as well, whether they're using Meraki or Umbrella or Forescout or NetScout or CyberArk or the list goes on. I think since you have when you're talking about devices, you're talking about your mobile device management, which is mainly your cell phones, right? Or you're talking about your computers. A lot of times you have different strategies for that. So they're coming together. And one other thing, well, what about O365, right? Because you could always say that, well, if we just use O365 on a personal device to get into, to at least check email, OneDrive, and SharePoint, right? Because you could, right? Uh, can't you backdoor and can you still use that? Well, we're coming up with some fixes to plug that hole, right? But the answer is yes. Administratively, the HR policy, we said don't do it. You cannot, right? But technically, there's still some holes that we need to plug. From talking with some of the agencies, seems like we're all in pretty much the same boat. But we're working at different strategies and solutions and plugging them. Meraki is certainly a solid tool. We've started going down the Cisco umbrella route, so we got some cost savings there. And I want to encourage you to use what Microsoft provides. Next slide. And I didn't share this, but I'll share my screen in just a second with some products that you're probably already paying for. Okay. So yeah, we're trying not to, as a measuring stick, we're trying not to impede in service delivery, right? So whether you're providing Health and Human Services, providing some guidance for recipients and from your Medicaid and your SNAP and your CHIP programs, or if you're a TWC, providing unemployment insurance, or whatever your mission is, TA, provide some of the educational services. That should always be the stick, and we want to just get closer to that. Next slide. I think I got 2 more slides, and then we'll. So I always don't like telling the technical how on those certain sections I'll show you, but because you'll be given the playbook for someone to countermand what you're doing if threat actors. But those are more private meetings, but we can share what we can. Next slide. So literally we have a checklist and it has 3 more rows and it gets more technical. All right, so these are the apps here that we're blocking, and we put the dates and how, and get very technical. Again, I can't share all of that, but we can where we will. Next slide. And for the sensitive areas, you know, meetings such as this, we just changed our Teams. Teams is the platform that we use mostly. If you have used Zoom, you can do this in Zoom as well. So you're testing when you're joining these meetings that you don't have any of the prohibited apps. You click on that highlighted link there, and it takes you to the list of the prohibited apps. We expect the prohibited app list to be somewhat, you know, it's not going to change every day, but it probably will change dynamic. So you always have the latest and greatest. I have the link on the next slide for your, if you want the link for the prohibited apps. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. Any questions?
And I'll drop that in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, there's a question from William in the chat. He asks, how are you handling contractors? Are you providing them with agency devices?
Yeah, so the contractors, you know, contractors, they have to adhere to the same rules. We are providing the contractors devices. Now, in some areas, for example, our Robert Half contractor, you know, they provide the devices with our image. So it's the same as us providing those devices, or in some cases, the phones. We don't mind giving out the phones, and if they don't return them at the end of the contract, they just bought the phone, and that's not a problem. And we can remote wipe on it. So we still have a lot of control. Okay, any other questions?
There's one that's Carrie asked about how do enforcement agencies request an exemption for allowing certain apps for our CPOs, and
Yeah, the exemption process is pretty structured. They have to get exemption from DIR and just follow the form, and they can request it. You know, you might have some of the your agent head has to approve it and then send it over to DIR. I was thinking in some cases, I think our fraud and deterrent had one of the apps that they were considering for an exemption, but they decided another route. So on the screen that you're looking at, I do want to just encourage you to look at some of the offerings that Microsoft has to address this. So it's certainly Intune for mobile device management is a great tool. SCCM, if you use SCCM, can help you track a lot of this. You can use some GPOs to block a lot of this. If you're familiar with Microsoft Centennial and that suite, you might not have all of this, but I encourage you to, using the layers, apply what you have and start turning this on. You might be surprised your license that you have is paying for some of this. You just need to turn it on. And if you don't have it, it's probably cost effective to at least investigate turning some of these pieces on. The Microsoft Defender for the cloud. I know you're just like us. You might be moving a lot of workloads to the cloud. Strongly encourage you to turn that one on. Your Microsoft Azure AD. Likewise, zero trust policy enforcement. That might, depending on where you are, that might take a little bit to get to. You know, so again, find out what your license has and what you're paying for. That might be a good question for Justin later on when he's on. I'm off. But yeah, I'll start there. And some of these pieces, you know, you can just enable relatively quickly. Okay. Can I answer any other questions? All right. Well, I'll yield.
Chris, that was really fantastic, and I, as always, appreciate your willingness to jump right in and help us out and share the knowledge of what y'all are doing. You guys really do a great job of communicating with your users, and the Tech Talk Coffee Break, as you said, been going for 4 years and just hugely successful in the not just the percentage of users using Teams at TWC, but the sophistication with which they're using it. So, which is what this community is all about. Is agencies helping agencies, and public, like I said in my email, public sector and education are all welcome on this forum. So thank you again, Chris, for sharing your expertise.
Absolutely. And thank you. I have a really, really great team, Microsoft Tech team and our Ultra 65 Tiger team. They are amazing. I've got to excuse myself a little early, but thank you. If you guys have any questions on what we're doing, and if you want a more private setting with some of the technical controls, reach out to me. My contact's in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That was excellent. Bye. Yeah. So let's now hand this over to Lisa Johnson from she's a program manager on our worldwide training team, and she was sharing some of the latest learning portals and websites and content that's available. And so I'm going to hand it over to Lisa.
All right, excellent. I am unable to share my, unable to share my camera today. I've been having some issues only since trying to connect to this meeting. So that said, I do want to focus in on 4 resources that are available to help you in your learning journey. And one of them you may be very familiar with already, which is Microsoft Learn. It is a platform that is available to every person with internet access around the world. But what we've done is made a lot of investment recently into making this a little bit more of a robust environment. And so um, where I spend a lot of time when I work with customers, and so I work with state and local government customers, including the state of Texas. And by the way, I'm just over in Lafayette, Louisiana, so I'm not too far from y'all. But uh, I I spend a lot of time here actually in this learn by doing area, and that's um, that's when I really started to realize how much value there is in some of these other areas of Microsoft Learn. And so taking a look at just, learn.microsoft.com. And when we're done here, Michael is going to go ahead and share a couple of links for you for these 4 resources that I'm sharing with you today as well. So take training. Looks like I'm logged in with my personal account here, which is just fine. I in fact recommend when you take a look at Microsoft Learn, actually logging in with a personal account and then linking to your employer, and that would give you any employer benefits that are available to you, including exam discounts and whatnot. And it would mean that if your work domain ever changes, you will never lose your learning progress because you will always have it backed up to your personal account. So sharing here the learning paths that are available. I love to come into learning paths and take a look at all the different learning modules that are available. There are individual modules, and then there's full-blown learning paths listed. So when we take a look at some of the modern work choices, you can go right under subjects, for example, open up modern work modules and learning paths that are available. And within here, you can even get a little bit more granular. Like, let's say, for example, you want to go into the product section and see what's available, you know, just for Teams and Teams Phone, for example, right? So now I've got 65 results, all different modules that cover these Teams and Teams Phone topics. Let's say that I really like this idea of, a quick introduction to Teams. And so I go ahead and I add this. Once I add it to a collection or create a new collection, I can kind of put it on my personal agenda to check it off the list as part of my individual development plan. Okay. If I'm a leader, I might want to consider partnering with Microsoft on executing a cloud skills challenge where you actually have your entire team go through a hand selected or hand built collection of modules that you put together. Okay. And that is something that someone like myself would help with. Very easy to set up and to execute. Okay. So that's Microsoft Learn, specifically the different modules. I do like when you see learning paths down here, for example. Let me see if I can find one that's a learning path. These look like a lot of modules. Okay, here's a learning path for MS 700. You can see here, it does align to that MS 700 certification. Um, and so it includes all of the different modules that are included with that certification, and it allows me to take a look at the exam page as well for the exam. Okay, so that is going to be the learning section or the learning paths within Microsoft Learn. Real quickly, I'm not going to spend as much time on these other boxes, but keep in mind, as it relates to the different products that are available by Microsoft, you can go ahead and take a look at the different documentation resources that are available. You've got the opportunity to go through and complete your certification. I like this ask questions and get help because it opens up an opportunity for you to connect with a community of peers and have others weigh in, and you can also jump in and help others answer their questions as well. If you have a coding or development role and responsibility, the coding samples is available for you to try different projects on for size. And then I really like these watch shows. I recommend these a lot for customers. For example, this is going to be the different events that have been recorded. And so different topics here. I will go to browse all shows. And again, you have the opportunity to kind of take a look at maybe some different areas. Let me just grab 365. All things Microsoft Cloud. Let's see what's in here. Okay, so we've got this 365 and Microsoft Teams, for example. Here's one on accessibility, GitHub. So you've got different topics in here that, if you have time on your calendar set aside for learning, never hurts to throw some of these sessions out on your calendar. Usually they are shorter sessions. Okay. So I just wanted to give you that quick tour of the Microsoft Learn site. I don't have the chat open, but I'm going to pause for just a second before I move to the next resource. Were there any quick questions that I can help answer, or feel free to come off of mute?
There was a statement, Pacey, and I wasn't sure if that was a question, but he was just talking about the using the personal, like you're at outlook.com or at hotmail.com, or I think you can link now what we confusingly call your Microsoft account, which is your personal account, not your Office 365 or agency identity. But any tips on linking those two, Lisa? Is it basically just a question that comes up when you first log in? How do you do that?
Sure. So if you don't have a personal Microsoft account, you want to create one. We no longer let you use a work email to create one. I think now it prompts you to go ahead and put your work email in. Let's say that I'm going to go ahead and take this exam. I don't even know which exam this is. You will always see the retail pricing of the exam. And I'm already signed in. This just happens to be the quickest way for me to get here to the certification page. I can see here my linked accounts. Okay, so give me a second. What's happening with it looks like it's thinking for just a second here.
Just looking up your profile information.
Yeah, I'm at a coffee shop, and that might be part of it. The bandwidth might be a little bit off here. So
And
so
thank you for taking the question. And that is kind of what I was getting at, is what are the benefits? And then we were just looking at Bing chat this morning and noticed that you've got a supplied email address. So I was just kind of talking through that.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
Yeah, Pacey, and I got my MCSE back in '97, my Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and I associated that to my Hotmail, my a very long Hotmail that I set up and didn't think I'd be typing in hundreds of times, and so all of the exams I've taken, I mean, my MCSE is no longer valid; it was NT4, but all of that stuff is associated to my personal ID, and I've left Microsoft. I came back to Microsoft. I worked for partners. I worked for a couple of startups, and it followed me because I own that account. And that's the huge benefit of having it tied to your personal account. And we sometimes we think, oh, I'll never leave this organization. Why would I do that? But life happens. Things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think that's a good question. So when I take a look at, and I'm in my certification profile specifically, but I think now when you create a Microsoft personal account, you have the opportunity to link. There's some new prompts that come out, but this is where I typically go look. You can see all my information here, but linked accounts. So I'm actually logged in with my personal Outlook account. And let's see. You can link an organ. Something is happening right here. Give me a second. Usually, this is a little snafu because usually it says right here where I'm linked. So give me a second. Normally what I would do is when I'm in here in the discount section, is I go in and I put my email address in and I check for discounts and it links my accounts. And so, let's see, remove the linked account. This is missing a section for me, guys. Like I don't have a good good demo here for you.
Lisa, I'll go there while you're talking, and I'll just see if it comes up differently for me.
Yeah. Let me find out the easiest way to ensure your accounts are linked. Okay. There is a place, it's probably up here in your profile somewhere, right? But I don't want to take too much time here and guess. Okay. But there is a way to see, and I think you can link up to 5 accounts, emails to your personal Microsoft account. Okay. So just know that. So what I'd like to do is maybe refocus on this until I have a clear, crisper answer for you on that. And we'll come back and we'll answer that as part of those links that we share out, okay? So the next resource I'd like to share, unless there's any other questions on the Learn site.
No questions in the chat.
Okay, so the Microsoft Training Days site. So training days are they are available globally. This is our US Training Days site. And this is really where we can see sessions. They're no longer than 4 hours in length and no longer than 2 days total. So you might have like 3.5 hours one day and 3.5 hours the next day. But the way that the virtual training sessions work is they are recorded. And they're recorded for quality purposes. And then there's live moderators on the chat. So they're answering questions along the way. So it feels very much like that live delivery, and it allows us to allow up to 4,000 learners per session. They do fill up. I know we have a heavy no-show rate on those, but they do fill up at that 4,000. So we've got them into Azure, our Biz Apps, M365, and security. Pretty easy for you to go ahead and take a look at the different sessions that are coming up on the schedule. And if one of them looks like it's going to be a good fit, for example, and has a date scheduled, you can go ahead and get enrolled in the session. So this one looks like it has a Surface related and a Teams phone related topic for now. Okay, but these are always changing. So just know that the Training Days events refresh. I think every single week we get kind of a new schedule out there of what's coming up. So if you don't see it this week, it certainly could be that it pops up next week with a future date. Okay, so those are the virtual training day sessions. They are not recorded in that you can just watch them on demand. They're still scheduled at this point. Okay. The next site I want to show you is the Art of the Possible. These again are going to be recorded sessions, or these are actually live sessions, excuse me. Live sessions, I believe they're only 1 hour in length. And so here's where we have topics around Viva and Power Automate. Looks like some additional Teams content in here, some more Teams phone. And this is where the schedule will be for some of these. So we actually have, I would love to say that we have like one pillar within Microsoft offering different trainings, but we actually have multiple groups that are funding and offering these to our customers. So one of these days we'll get it together and put everything in one place for everybody. We're not there
You
quite
really
yet.
think so, Lisa?
Nope, not there yet. You know, I think the single sign-on. So I work for specifically for our Enterprise Skilling Initiative program, and you know that is there's authentication that happens there. And we finally have the single sign-on process between Microsoft Learn and ESI. And I see that happening now, hopefully in the future, between like our services hub for anyone who's part of unified support. And I really think that there's going to be some unifying in the future. I just don't know how long it's going to take to get there. So um, I'm pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to all of those decisions. Okay, so the last resource I wanted to mention here, I get that it's just the 900 for Azure, okay? But I wanted to let you know about this GCC modified class. So we do have this course coming up. Upsgility is a partner of ours. They do reside in Texas. And so they are offering this session coming up, AZ 900 for our government GCC customers. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that this was going to be available coming up on June 13th. So it's part of the links that get shared out. This is one of them that we have. So global knowledge, Netcom Learning, Opsgility, and one other learning partner. There's Fastlane, I believe, Fastlane. They're all offering the 900 level trainings for free. So if you're looking at like the MS 900, for example, they'll be free through a couple of different learning partners. But wanted to mention this one specifically because not only are they in your neck of the woods, they're really great to work with from a learning partner perspective. And then they were willing to modify this for us to focus in on some of those key GCC differences. Okay. So that's all I have for my portion. Were there any additional questions in the chat?
Let me look. I did not see any more questions. I did go ahead and go out to learn.microsoft.com and I just did a screen capture. I logged in with my Hotmail account.
Do you want to
And
share your
then,
screen?
yeah, I put I put
Oh, you put it into the chat.
steps. Yeah, so there's an
Okay.
image there. So if you go there and that's what you'll see once you get logged in and you just click on, I think it was account management. Let me look at account management and then
That
scroll
sounds
down a little
right.
bit. And then under account management, you'll see where you have the ability to add accounts and you can see your linked accounts. And so that's exactly how you do what Lisa was talking about. And you do have the ability to have multiple accounts, not just like, like I have my Hotmail. I try to keep the emails to a minimum in my life. So I just use Hotmail. And I think I've had that account since I don't even know, like 95 or 94. And so, yep, that's what you do. And then those will be linked together and all the benefits, as we talked about, of that staying with you over your lifetime and all your certifications staying with you, not just your organization.
And where
So
did you
that
find
is,
it? Where did you find that account management?
I just went to learn.microsoft.com. Here, let me share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, nobody make fun of me for the number of browser tabs I have open. It's a bit out of control right this minute. And I have multiple windows with multiple browser tabs open.
Oh
Okay.
my goodness.
Yeah, well, but that's why, God gave us the sleeping tab. And so all these are asleep. As you can see, they're all dimmed out. And so they're not consuming any resources, but this one, which is fresh, is. And so I went to learn.microsoft.com and then just here. And what I did is I clicked up here and I logged in. And so if I click it now, you can see that I'm logged in. There's my Michael Peach Kennedy at Hotmail. And so I can sign out. So I signed in and then I went here. I clicked that and it took me to this page. Okay, so here's like your personal info. And then I just scroll down and that's where you get to the add account. And then this is my MCID. I don't know what that stands for. Oh, Microsoft Certification ID. And so that's my unique ID. And so I have the ability to go then and see what all I have, what certifications I have. And there's a whole bunch of stuff out here. It's really, I'm always blown away how many resources there are. I'm also blown away by how many resources there are because we really it's a challenge to keep up with all this stuff. So we don't take it lightly, but we are grateful to have. It's better to have too many than not enough, but we recognize that's still a challenge. Let's see. No, Scott, you're not the only one with a Hotmail account. I remember when I first heard of the word Hotmail, I thought it was like some naughty thing. And I'm like, I'm not getting a Hotmail account. And I was like, oh, it's what? And then Microsoft bought Hotmail. This is in the Wayback Machine. And so I was like, okay, I guess it's all right. So Lisa, thank you so much. And these are online sites that are available. And so last session that we had, the February Texas Teams community meeting, we also talked about learning pathways. And at the time I said, we're going to schedule a session where we're going to teach you how Netscape. Oh my God. I still have a friend that has an AOL account and uses it. Yes, Paysian, I have a friend that still uses AOL. Now, this guy's a gazillionaire. And so I guess he probably actually doesn't ever look at it. Somebody does that for him. But yeah, AOL. And so let's see what else we got here. ICQ. Oh wow, I've heard that in a long time. Amateur hour, so many tabs. Yeah, so many. Yeah, thanks, Star. Okay, is there anything else here? Okay. Yeah, who said I feel so much better about my tabs? Yeah, Jennifer. Yeah, no, you shouldn't. We're both like way too ADD. And like I said, that's one of two.
So how many emails do you have in your inbox?
You really want to know?
No,
Hey,
I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
you know how I always tell y'all, if you really want to get a hold of me, then send me a message in Teams because I might miss your email if you send me an email. All right, I'm always careful what sending. 4,832 unread emails.
Oh.
I'm not proud of that, but there's 29,421 emails I've received in the last 4 years. It's a bit overwhelming. So if you, like I said, if you want to get a hold of me, message me in Teams. Mean it, really. And don't reach out to me on Hotmail because I barely ever check that. But we have this training, and then what I was just bringing up, and I think squirreled myself and got distracted, is we have learning pathways, which is the GCC compatible training site that runs inside of your SharePoint environment and then can be pinned on the left rail in Teams. So it'll be on the left-hand side. And we have agencies that have been using this for years, and it's absolutely fantastic. And what it does is it surfaces up some of that content that is out there in learn.microsoft.com. And you can add your own content, your custom content. You can create skill paths. You can do a welcome to the agency and have like your first day. So there's a ton of stuff you can do. And one of the tabs that I have available on I'm still sharing my screen. One of the ridiculous number of tabs that I have available is my YouTube channel. And so Tuesday, we did that session that I was talking about on learning pathways training. And so this is my good friend and coworker, Alex. And I love this picture. Yes, my face looked even worse 2 days ago. So I had my avatar up. And he did a training on how to use and configure learning pathways. And he's going to supply additional documentation. And I've got to do a follow-up email with all the links. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put the link to this video that's out on my YouTube channel in the chat. So if you are wanting to if you don't have a true LMS, learning management system, and this is not an LMS, but what it is an awesome site to surface up end user Office 365 training. And so there's the link to the overview of learning pathways. And I'm going to send out documentation on learning pathways on how to set it up, links to documentation because it's all online. And it can be multilingual. And it's quite feature rich. And you can add additional tabs to the learning pathways site so that you could have access to, like if you use LinkedIn Learning, you could put a LinkedIn Learning tab. Now it won't bring all the LinkedIn Learning content in there, but now your users, when they're in Teams, they'll see an icon on the left. One of our customers, Health and Human Services, they called it Let's Learn. Pacey, and I'm sure he has it right there on his left side. And it's a little icon, and you click it, and it opens up this learning environment. You can watch videos. There's going to be documents. You can, they have a Q&A SharePoint site so people can ask questions and have their questions answered. And so it can be really feature rich. And if you have LinkedIn Learning, then you could have a tab that shows your LinkedIn Learning. And then you click on that, it opens up a browser and it logs you into LinkedIn Learning. It's not all integrated. But again, it's not a true LMS, but it's pretty darn good. And one of these days, our Viva Learning platform will be available in GCC, but not today. So thanks so much to Lisa for all of that knowledge on a site that I had not seen before, where you can really drill into, I want just modern work, I want just this particular product like Teams, or I want Power BI, or whatever the case might be. So great content. So then we have the Learn for Government, and then something else I want to share with you all now is a new document that's been created, and let me grab the URL because there's in my chat. Now see, I only have 10 unread chat messages, so that's not so bad. So one of my coworkers, his name is Harry Jack. He's awesome and amazing, and he created this accessibility feature guide for GCC for Teams. I'm being mouse challenged here, so getting a little view behind the curtain there with my production teams. Okay, so I'm putting a link in here. And then what I want to do is I want to show you what this is going to open up. It is going to open up this awesome PowerPoint that he put together, and even put some really cool like little links to go to the next slide and things like that. And so this is a Teams accessibility feature guide. And so let me go into PowerPoint mode. Can somebody come off mute and tell me, are y'all still seeing my slides?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So check this out. So pin, self-pin, and hide video, multi-window experience, zoom in, zoom out, language interpretation, best practices for accessible meetings, cycling, all of this great content. And so let's just say that you wanted best practices for accessible meetings. Click here, takes you some tips and tricks on this. And then we'll take you through exactly how to do this. And so how to set up this language interpreter spotlighted so you can easily find it. So again, just really great knowledge that is built into this slide deck. So just invite y'all to take advantage of this. It's kept up to date. It's brand new. It just was released, I think today he put it out there. And so tons and tons and tons of great content. Now, I won't say that Teams is perfect with regard to accessibility. And I've been working with one of our agency customers around screen readers. And so there's a lot going on in Teams. And so when you're using a screen reader, it's a lot of stuff. But there are some best practices training that is available that can really significantly improve the end user experience for those using screen readers. And one of our friends over at this agency is totally blind. She has no visual acuity. And so using a screen reader is not a nice to have, it is a must have for her. And so again, I just want to encourage you to take a look at these accessibility features that are available. We're always adding new things, trying to get better. And again, it's not perfect, but it's come a long way since we started a couple of years ago with so many people using Teams. Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to share with y'all. Yep, and so that is this. There is a site called our feature guide. And I'll put the link inside of the chat. And so the feature guide, we used to talk about this every month. And so it's been a little while since we've talked about it. So I just wanted to remind y'all about the existence of this amazing document. And so let me go ahead and drop the link in the chat. And there's a shortened URL, but I didn't capture it in time. So I'll just drop this in here. Okay, so this is called the GCC Teams Feature Guide. And what this seeks to do is to help you. It says Microsoft Live Send, but it's actually the feature guide. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. The Accessibility Summit it was absolutely incredible. And so if you did not attend the Accessibility Summit, just type in Microsoft Accessibility Summit, and all of the on-demand sessions are there. And again, it's not perfect, but we've come a long way. And so this feature guide, it's very difficult as a GCC customer. We know this, to figure out what's available in GCC, when it, what's been released, what's coming. Our roadmap, as much as our development teams try to be very accurate, sometimes it's not 100% accurate. They say something is going to release and then it doesn't because there's a problem, or it's delayed, or they release it ahead of schedule. So what this seeks to do is go through and here's the actual the shortened URL. I'll drop this into the chat, and it's called the weekly update because it's updated weekly. And so, okay, so this teaches you how to bookmark it. Okay, and then there's some other podcasts, not podcasts, but other meetings they're set up specifically for GCC. There's some community calls, and so like live caption usability improvement in Teams meetings. So it's all about this, and it talks about what the message center ID is. So if you're in IT and you have access to the message center, that's there. The roadmap ID with a hyperlink to go right to the actual online roadmap, right to that ID. And the rollout begin mid-May, rollout complete early June. So this is a forecast of what will be coming. If you didn't know this, it does take sometimes up to a couple of months for a feature to roll out globally. And so, this is a new feature, and this was published on April 8th, so a few days ago. So I'm going to zoom down a little bit. Okay, here we go. And this is previous roadmap updates. So you don't have to always keep up to date on this because they take all of the previous updates and they drop them in here. And so this is a great example of one that has all kinds of links to additional documentation about this, different features, how you set it up. If it requires PowerShell, we have reference to PowerShell. So I just want to encourage y'all to take advantage of this document for knowing what's coming and knowing what has been released and what the latest features are. Okay, so that. Okay, so there is that weekly update. Now let me look and see, has Justin Rohn joined our call?
Yeah, Michael, I'm out here.
Hey, Justin, thanks for joining. So let me stop sharing my screen. We had a great overview from Chris Bunton with Texas Workforce Commission talking about how they were addressing some of the prohibited apps. And he really shared a lot about what they're doing and how it impacted their bring your own device initiative in order to lock down the devices. They had to use agency issued devices. Talked a little bit about how they were using Intune to do that, as well as some of Cisco, Umbrella, and Meraki. And so I invited Justin, and he graciously accepted kind of a last minute invite to just come and Justin has a lot of conversations with a lot of agencies to talk maybe just a few things about this. And if people had some questions about how Microsoft can help you with that. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, sure. So, and I have to apologize, I'm driving at the moment. So if you ever hear a little bit of road noise, that's what it is. So back when Governor Abbott released all this, the restrictions that came out on TikTok and various other sites that are affiliated with areas of the world that we didn't want to be a part of, Microsoft went and developed a little bit of a guide on how to use our technologies to block some of those sites. One of the things they use to do is, as Michael mentioned, is Intune and some security policies and capabilities inside the O365 ecosystem that can help block users from accessing these sites from agency-owned and agency-derived machines. Your customer success units, so the CSAMs that we have out there, Kathy Wyas, Corby, Maribel, Darian, can all get that to you, or I can send it to you right afterwards. But it basically equates into Intune policies and policies in Office 365 that get applied to the devices that are being managed that basically block and prevent access to TikTok and the like and those type of sites. Not a whole lot of detail other than that, and I know that each agency is pretty much digested what we've sent, and then their internal security organizations guidance. I don't believe the DIR has presented just here's a step-by-step guide on how to do this, but they have kind of relayed the requirements and what the governor is asking for. And then each agency is kind of taking it on themselves to help drive and build it the way that they needed to build it. But other than that, if there's any questions out there, I'm happy to answer. Happy to get you all in contact with your CSAMs for the guidance that we provide, and then and shepherd you along in terms of utilizing Intune and the O365 platform to achieve this block. Questions?
Let me look here, Justin. I'm dropping a bunch of links into the chat, so I've been overwhelming the chat a little bit.
And I can get you all the document right after this. And Michael, if you do a follow up and the email and put it into Teams, I can get you that document and we can post out there for everyone to go see. It is a lot of policy driven type of things, so I don't know if it'll apply to everyone, but and most certainly your agencies are already looking at this or have already implemented it. But it's good to disseminate this information as best as possible.
Yeah, and if you have questions, feel free to ping me on Teams. It's just michael.kennedy@microsoft.com. You can reach me in Teams, and just ask me. Hey, do you have that stuff that Justin was talking about? I'll get the link from Justin, and so that way we're not sending out to. I think we got like 590 people on the invite now, and so yeah, Justin, I really appreciate you joining, and Chris did a great job giving an overview of it, and so I think he probably answered a lot of people's questions. And a lot of people on this call, they're fortunate in that they they don't have to take care of this. Someone else is taking care of that on their behalf. So again, thanks for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah, anytime.
Excellent. Let me, Mark, or anybody else, keep me honest today. Was there anything else I said that we were going to talk about that I haven't talked about? See my aforementioned low on sleep comments.
Michael, not that I'm aware of.
All right. Well, let's open it up. If there are any questions that y'all have about, I do have one other thing that I want to talk about. We are working right now on putting together an event with the DIR. We're working on the date, and I'll make sure and send out a notification to everyone that's on this meeting, on this community forum, for a employee engagement summit. Some of you have attended our summits before. We've had hybrid work summits, and we did an employee engagement summit way back in 2018. And so this is going to be really focused around your HR, your training, your communications, your internal marketing and comms groups, really helping them understand some of the latest thoughts and trends around employee engagement. And so let me just quickly share my screen and give you a little highlight. So I've been working on employee engagement best practices for a number of years, and really tried to simplify this by creating what I call the employee engagement life cycle. And so the life cycle is recruiting. So how do we recruit new talent? How do we onboard new talent? How do we retain talent when they are in talent, meaning employees? And then when someone leaves, Brian Francis, who was the former executive director of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, where STAR works, he did an amazing job with the culture over there and really having a very mission-driven culture. And they also, when someone chooses to either retire or leave, or the grass is greener, go work somewhere else, and then they keep them in the fold and keep them in the family and let them know what's going on. And what that tends to do is the people, employees, former employees, alumni, tend to refer people still, the best and brightest, to the agency because it's a great place to work. Or what we call at Microsoft is a boomerang, which is someone like myself that comes back to work at Microsoft. And so these 4 phases, there are particular touch points and things that we can do all the way along the process to engage our employees. And so at the Employee Engagement Summit, we're going to talk about this life cycle. We're going to give clear examples of what can be done using the technology you own or some additional technologies that you can use, like recruiting. If you're trying to recruit young people, Generation X, Millennials, Gen Z, and you are using email to communicate, that's a big myth because I have an 18-year-old and I can't get him to check email for my life. And so if I don't DM him or send him a text message, forget about it. He's not reading it. And so we have some really modern communication strategies and tactics. Same thing with onboarding. Some really wonderful examples of what you can do to truly make someone feel welcome as they're coming onto your agency or your organization. And then also, how do you onboard them properly and get them trained? And then how do we keep people engaged while they're working and keep them from getting bored and give them an interesting statistic is 76% of people that left jobs that answered the survey said that if they had felt like the organization was providing adequate training and really had an interest in their career development, they would have stayed. And so I don't know about you, but most of my customers talk about having a challenge keeping people or hiring great talent. And this conference is going to be all about that. So that will be coming up in May, in all likelihood. And I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a highlight as to what's going to be coming. It is not an IT conference, and so the reason I say that is this isn't going to be talking necessarily about technology, but it's going to be talking about ways that you move the needle on employee engagement for the benefit of the agency. So with that, I will open it up to any topic you want to talk about. Star, I know you always have something. What you got?
I don't have anything really recently. I did notice the new video messages thing, but haven't
Oh,
really used
really?
it.
Is
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
GCC now? I haven't never
Yep,
used it. That's cool.
yep.
So you can send, instead of sending like a little voice message, you can send a quick video to somebody.
Yeah, 60 seconds is I think the max you can do, and it's disabled when you're on a call or joining a meeting.
Nice. Okay, Justin, you're going to start getting some videos from me because I know you miss my face. He doesn't really right now. He's probably swerving all over the road. Anybody else? Any other questions that we can answer about any topic? It doesn't have to be Teams. All
Have
right. Well,
you have
that,
you
yeah.
have you heard anything about any sort of timeline on when GCC will be allowed in the feedback portals?
Oh man, no, I haven't. It is, yeah. It just boggles my imagination that we turned that off and didn't provide another mechanism. You can always provide feedback to me or your CSAM star. I know that's not the same thing as going directly through a feedback portal, which
Mhm.
was the. I'm going to try to leave my opinions out of this. It was a little bit handier version of doing that. But if there's something going on, we have the ability to surface that internally, and there are some things that we can actually bring about change pretty quickly, and there are other things, as some of you know who are my customers, where it just takes a super long time because it's a big ask, and it's like a product change to Teams is really hard to do, and there's a lot of things they're working on, and so some things are quick and some things are super slow. Sometimes it's a bug, and it's just like something that's not working in your tenant. And that's always a great time to reach out to your CSAM, your customer success account manager. If you don't know who that is, just go to your IT group. They do. And sometimes it's just literally a bug. Like it should be working. It doesn't. They fix it. And there you go. Now it works. So when you look at the the feature guide, if you see things that aren't working, go to your IT team first because it may just be that it's not turned on yet. Because they got quite a backlog sometimes of things to do. And it may be that it's just not working in your tenant because of a glitch. So just welcome you to be participatory in trying to get you everything that is available. Okay, anything else? Well, I want to say thank you to everybody for attending today. I will apologize again. Note to self, don't change the meeting 30 minutes before the meeting. Also, just, when you're coming in this tired, maybe just slow down a little bit. And so thanks to everybody for participating. Look forward to another great session next month, and be on the lookout for the Employee Engagement Summit. And please forward that to your training people, your HR people, people that are in charge of communications, and trying to figure out how to attract and retain your absolute best employees for your agency. Have a wonderful day, a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.